Have you ever walked into a place where you had every right to belong, yet were treated as though you didn't imagine booking a luxury suite for your mother's birthday, only to be told before the world that people like you don't belong there? This isn't a headline from the 1960s. It happened in the heart of Manhattan to a woman who wasn't just any guest. She was the black CEO of the very company that owned the hotel. In that instant, she had a choice: stay silent to keep the peace, or stand tall and expose the truth. If it were you standing beside your aging mother, hearing her dignity stripped away, what would you do? Would you walk out quietly, or would you fight back, knowing millions might one day see your story? This is not just about wealth or power. It's about respect. It's about the invisible battles carried in our family's histories, and the moment one daughter chose to rewrite them. Stay with us, because what happened next shook an entire industry. Like this video, share it with those who need to hear it, and subscribe to the channel, because this story is only the beginning. The revolving glass doors of the Grand Crest Manhattan Hotel spun quietly, letting in the warm pulse of a Thursday afternoon in New York City. The lobby was a cathedral of marble, and glass-gleaming chandeliers hung like frozen constellations. The air perfumed with orchids and polished wood. Guests in tailored suits and silk dresses moved with the kind of deliberate hush that only the wealthy can carry. Into this curated silence stepped Dr. Maya Robinson, a woman who walked like she belonged in every room she entered because she did. At 44, Maya carried herself with understated certainty. Her dark tailored jacket rested against a cream blouse, trousers sharp at the crease, black heels that did not clatter but landed with quiet authority. A gold watch hugged her wrist, elegant yet restrained, the kind of accessory that whispered power instead of shouting it. Beside her was her mother, Clara Robinson, 71 years old. Her presence was softer, but no less commanding. Her grace earned through decades in classrooms where she taught children who often had more hunger than books. Clara wore a pearl-colored dress that brushed her calves, comfortable flats, and carried a small leather purse worn smooth by years of habit. Her hair, now a crown of silver pulled neatly into a bun, framed a face lined not by defeat but by endurance. "Mom, are you sure you're comfortable here?" Maya asked gently, nudging her mother with a warm elbow. Clara's lips curved into the hint of a smile. "Maya, I used to scrub hotel floors not so different from this when you were still in pigtails. I think I can manage walking through the front door." Maya laughed softly, her tension easing. "Just making sure you remember the corner suite with the view. I asked for windows that open." Clara gave her daughter a sideways look, a spark of humor in her eyes. "Already handled." "I suppose already handled," Maya confirmed. Together they approached the reception desk, a long slab of black stone lit from beneath like a stage. Behind it sat two employees. One typed mechanically, eyes fixed on the screen. The other scrolled idly through a tablet, perfectly manicured nails tapping without interest. Neither lifted their head. Maya waited. 5 seconds. 10. The silence stretched awkwardly. Finally, she leaned forward slightly, her voice clear, polite, impossible to ignore. "Good afternoon. We have a reservation. The penthouse suite. The name is Robinson, Maya Robinson." The younger woman at the desk finally looked up. She was white, maybe mid-30s, her lipstick an austere shade of red that matched the impatience in her eyes. She gave Maya a glance, one quick, clinical assessment, then returned to her screen without a word. Not a nod, not a welcome, nothing. Maya blinked once, calm but surprised, and shifted slightly to glance at her mother. Clara's lips pressed together. a familiar tight line that carried decades of similar encounters. She whispered under her breath, "Not the first time I've been invisible at a desk." Minutes passed, heavy and deliberate. Finally, the receptionist stood abruptly and disappeared into a back office. "That's odd," Maya murmured. Clara gave a slow nod, her hand resting lightly on her daughter's. "Odd, yes. Surprising, no." Before Maya could respond, another figure emerged from the side corridor. Victoria Hale, the floor manager, walked with the kind of clipped confidence that suggested both authority and suspicion. Her tailored navy suit clung tightly at the waist. Her heels struck sharply against marble. Her eyes cold. Assessing scanned Maya and Clara like luggage that had been misdelivered. She leaned toward the receptionist and asked, loud enough for both Robinson women to hear, "They said they booked the penthouse suite." "Yes," the receptionist answered flatly. Victoria straightened, her mouth hardening into a practiced smile. Then, without lowering her voice, she delivered words sharp enough to cut marble. "We don't give penthouse suites to people like you. I don't care what you think you paid for." The sentence landed with a thud in the quiet lobby. Conversations faltered. A man in a linen suit lowered his newspaper. A woman with a glass of champagne paused mid-sip. Even the soft piano music piped through hidden speakers seemed to hesitate. Clara froze. Her back stiffened, but her eyes, those warm, worn eyes, clouded with something older than shock. Humiliation, familiar yet still piercing. Maya's lips parted slightly, but she did not blink. Her pulse quickened, but her face remained still. Steady. She asked quietly, almost too calmly, "I'm sorry." "What did you just say?" Victoria did not flinch. She repeated herself. Slower this time, each word deliberate. "Your kind of reservation doesn't come through this hotel. If you'd like to complain, you can contact the corporate office." Clara's jaw trembled. Her hand quivered slightly in Maya's. She whispered. Maya, but her daughter, squeezed her palm firmly. Maya inhaled once, deep and measured, then said with quiet dignity, "All right, we'll step outside. But this isn't the end of it." Victoria turned her back before Maya finished speaking. The receptionist kept her eyes fixed on the screen. The Robinson women walked out of the marble lobby, heads held high. But as they stepped into the New York air, something changed in Maya's eyes. Not anger, not even shock. Purpose. Clara, clutching her daughter's hand a little tighter, felt the weight of survival pressing down. She had lived through decades of moments like this. She knew exactly what had just happened inside that lobby. She knew the silence of onlookers who chose not to interfere, and she recognized the steel in Maya's gaze. The world outside continued. Horns blared. A bus idled. Sneakers squeaked on concrete. But for Maya, the only sound was the echo of 4 words still ringing inside her chest. "People like you." She had heard it before in classrooms where teachers doubted her brilliance, in boardrooms where investors questioned her leadership, in whispers disguised as compliments. "You speak so well." But today, the words had been stripped bare. No disguise, no politeness, just cruelty. Maya closed her eyes briefly, grounding herself. She turned to her mother. "Are you all right?" Clara nodded faintly, though her gaze lingered on the tall glass panels of the lobby behind them, her reflection faint, almost swallowed by the shine. "I've been called worse," she said softly. Then, after a beat, "But they didn't know who you were." Maya exhaled through her nose. A slow, steady release. Exactly. She reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. Her fingers moved with precision, not anger. 3 names, 3 numbers, Legal, operations, corporate security. Her voice was calm, almost too calm, as she spoke into the phone. We've got a situation at Grand Crest, Manhattan. Meet me here in 20 minutes. Clara looked at her daughter with a blend of worry and pride. Remember, Maya, they don't expect you to come back. Maya's lips curved into a small, knowing smile. That's the beauty of it. The storm had been set in motion. Outside, the September sun pressed against the tall glass of the Grand Crest Manhattan Hotel. Cars honked impatiently, taxis darted between lanes, and the smell of roasted chestnuts drifted faintly from a cart on the corner. Yet for Maya Robinson and her mother, the city's rhythm felt muted, as though the world had dimmed its volume to watch them in this moment. They sat together on a stone bench just outside the entrance. Clara adjusted her purse on her lap, her fingers fidgeting with the clasp as if it could anchor her from the storm inside. Her eyes, once sparkling with humor moments ago, were now clouded with something heavier. Maya noticed. She always noticed. You don't have to carry it, Maya said quietly, her gaze on the sidewalk. Carry what Clara's voice was fragile, defensive, the voice of someone who had carried everything for too long, the shame that doesn't belong to you. Clara's shoulders stiffened. She turned slightly toward her daughter, her silver hair catching sunlight. Maya, I've lived 71 years in this skin. I've been turned away from restaurants, denied jobs I was overqualified for, laughed at when I asked for a fair wage. What happened in there? She tilted her chin toward the towering hotel doors. Is not new. It's just louder now. Maya looked at her mother with an ache in her chest. She hated the resignation she heard. She hated that her mother had been forced to normalize humiliation just to survive. And beneath the ache was a rage so deep it throbbed like a second heartbeat. But she did not let it erupt. Not yet. Instead, Maya placed her hand gently over her mother's. I promised you this birthday would be different. I wanted you to feel celebrated, Mom, to feel like you belong in the finest suite of the hotel chain I built with my own hands. Clara's eyes softened at her daughter's words. She squeezed Maya's hand. I don't need chandeliers or marble floors to feel celebrated. I just need you. But, her voice broke slightly, no mother ever wants to see her child disrespected like that. I could stand 100 insults, but hearing those words thrown at you, people like you, it tore something inside me. Maya inhaled deeply, steadying herself. She had mastered composure through years of boardrooms, shareholder meetings, and negotiations where every misstep was magnified because of her race and gender. But sitting beside her mother now, she allowed a sliver of her true emotion to escape. Do you know what I wanted to do in there? Maya asked. Clara tilted her head. Tell me. I wanted to slam my hand on that desk. I wanted to shout until every guest in that lobby turned their head. I wanted to demand respect in the loudest way possible. And why didn't you? Clara's tone was gentle, but curious. Because, Maya said slowly, anger wins the moment, but loses the war. And this isn't about a single desk or a single lobby. It's about every child who'll walk into a hotel years from now and never hear the words, people like you. The silence between them stretched, heavy but alive. Clara studied her daughter's face, searching for the little girl she once walked to school, hair tied in ribbons, eyes wide with questions about the world. She found her instead transformed tempered steel, forged by fire. Then what will you do? Maya Clara asked at last. Maya pulled her phone from her purse again, her screen lit with missed calls, emails, and market updates. But she ignored them all. Instead, she tapped 3 quick contacts, Anthony Reed, Jasmine Cole, corporate security. Her voice when she spoke was calm, deliberate, the way generals must sound before battle. This is Maya Robinson. I need you at Grand Crest, Manhattan. 20 minutes. Bring everything you need for a crisis response. She ended the calls, tucking the phone back into her bag. Her mother watched her, a quiet mixture of worry and pride battling in her expression. You know, Clara murmured, when you were 10, they wouldn't let us sit at the diner counter. You cried all the way home. Do you remember what you told me? Maya shook her head faintly. You said, one day, I'll own the whole diner. Clara's lips curved, bittersweet. Well, today you do. The only question is, what will you do with it? Maya leaned back against the bench, letting the question settle like dust in sunlight. Around them, New York moved on tourists snapping pictures, taxis pulling up, bellmen rolling carts of luggage. None of them knew a storm was gathering in plain sight. She turned her gaze back to the glass lobby doors. Her reflection looked back at her, calm but unyielding. What will I do? She repeated softly. I'll make sure they remember this moment for the rest of their lives. Clara placed her hand on her daughter's arm. Just promise me one thing. What's that? That you'll protect your heart while you protect your dignity. Maya looked at her mother for a long time. Then she nodded once, firm. I promise. The city roared back to full volume. And with it came the quiet certainty that the next 20 minutes would change everything. Back inside the glittering lobby of the Grand Crest Manhattan Hotel, the silence that had followed Victoria Hale's cutting words began to splinter. Conversations picked up in hesitant bursts, but the rhythm was uneven, like an orchestra fumbling to find its tune. People leaned toward one another, whispering with the curiosity of witnesses who sensed they had just seen the opening scene of something much larger. A man in a linen suit bent toward his companion, murmuring, "Did you hear what she said? That woman, she called them people like you." His companion glanced nervously toward the front desk. Another guest, a young woman with a designer tote bag, slipped her phone discreetly out of her pocket and began typing furiously. Within seconds, a tweet hit the digital ether. At Grand Crest Hotel, just watched a black woman and her elderly mom get denied their suite, manager said. People like you. Unreal. Discrimination. NYC. The word spread like sparks in dry grass. Meanwhile, Lauren Scott, the receptionist, sat frozen in her chair. She kept her eyes glued to her computer screen, pretending to type, though her fingers hovered stiffly over the keys. Her face betrayed the smallest tremor of doubt. She had seen the woman's name on the reservation, Robinson. Something about it tugged at the edges of her memory, but she shoved the thought away. Easier to follow Victoria's lead than risk confrontation. At the center of it all, Victoria Hale stood like a marble statue carved from smugness. She brushed an invisible fleck of dust from her blazer sleeve, then spoke quietly to Lauren. "Don't worry. I'll file the report later. Some guests just don't fit the image we're curating here." Lauren gave a small nod, though her stomach churned. She had worked in hotels long enough to know that image was too often a polite disguise for exclusion. Still, she kept silent. Near the lobby bar, a man scrolling on his phone suddenly froze. His brows lifted. "Wait a second," he whispered to his wife. "I think I recognize her. That woman. Isn't she Maya Robinson, the CEO? She was on the cover of Forbes last year." His wife leaned closer, squinting. "The one who built that global hotel group Robinson Lux." "That's her." He nodded, eyes wide. "I'm pretty sure." The whisper traveled like a current through the room. A ripple of realization began to spread. Perhaps the woman they had just seen humiliated wasn't just another guest. Perhaps she was someone far more powerful than Victoria Hale imagined. At the corner of the lobby, a young intern named Nina Alvarez clutched her notepad. She had started her training only 2 weeks earlier, and this was the first time she had seen a confrontation escalate so publicly. Her stomach twisted with unease. Something about the older woman's trembling hands and the younger woman's calm dignity unsettled her. It reminded her too much of her own grandmother being dismissed at grocery counters, of her own mother lowering her voice at banks. Nina whispered to herself, almost like a vow. That wasn't right. She looked toward Victoria, who now stood with her arms folded, surveying the lobby as though she had restored order. But Nina could sense order had not been restored. It had only fractured, waiting to collapse. From the mezzanine, another guest filmed discreetly, her phone angled behind a potted plant. "If that really is Maya Robinson," she whispered into the camera for her Instagram story, "this hotel has no idea what's coming." Down at the front desk, Victoria checked her watch. "They'll leave quietly," she muttered under her breath. Though no one had asked, they always do. But even as she said it, her confidence felt slightly forced, like a mask slipping at the edges. She had built her career on controlling narratives before they spiraled. But something about the set of that woman's shoulders steady, unbowed as she left gnawed at her. Lauren noticed it too. She shifted in her seat, whispering carefully, What if she really was somebody important?" Victoria gave a sharp laugh. "Important? Please. If she were important, we'd know." "Trust me, Lauren, she's not the kind of person who owns penthouses. She's the kind who cleans them." The cruelty hung in the air like smoke, curling into the ears of anyone near enough to hear. A businessman at the concierge desk flinched at the remark, though he said nothing. For a moment, the lobby returned to its steady hum. Guests resumed checking in. Luggage wheels rattled across polished stone. The pianist in the corner struck up another song, but beneath it all ran an invisible thread of anticipation. Because though Victoria believed the matter was closed, those who had seen the Robinson women's departure knew better. They had seen the calm in Maya's eyes. They had felt the tension in the air. And they sensed without knowing how that the silence outside was not surrender. It was preparation. Nina scribbled one last note in her pad, the letters quick and uneven. Sometimes silence is the loudest warning. The stone bench outside the Grand Crest Manhattan was cool beneath Maya Robinson's palms. She pressed her hands against it, grounding herself, as if the weight of polished granite could steady the storm building inside her chest. The city pulsed around her sirens in the distance, snippets of conversation from tourists marveling at skyscrapers, the hiss of a bus braking at the curb, all of it blurred into static. For Maya, the world had shrunk to two things: the trembling hand of her mother beside her, and the echo of those words. "People like you." The phrase gnawed at her ribs like something alive. She had heard it in so many disguises over the years, but today it had been naked, sharpened to a blade. Her mother's voice broke the silence. "Maya, I don't want you to carry this weight. Not again." Maya turned, studying Clara's lined face. Even after 7 decades, her mother's eyes held the same steady warmth that had guided Maya through every storm. And yet, those eyes now shimmered with old wounds. "Not again," Maya echoed softly. Clara exhaled, her voice low. "You were 10 years old. Do you remember the diner on Ashland Avenue? We'd saved coins for a week. just so I could treat you to pancakes after Sunday service." Maya's brow furrowed. Yes, she remembered. The linoleum counter, the clatter of plates, the smell of bacon grease, the way the waitress had smiled at the family behind them, then frowned at Clara. "They told us there weren't any seats," Maya said quietly. Her mother nodded. "But the seats were empty. 4 of them. I saw your little hands clutching your coin purse, so proud to pay. And I saw the tears when they told us to leave." Maya swallowed hard. That day had shaped her. Not just the humiliation, but the look on her mother's face, dignified, proud, refusing to beg for a seat. She had walked out with her daughter's hand in hers, head high, though Maya felt the tremor in her grip. That tremor lived inside her still. Clara leaned closer now, her voice trembling but firm. "I can live with humiliation. I've lived with it for years. But you—" She stopped, searching for words. "You built something greater. You don't have to fight every battle." Maya's gaze lingered on the hotel's glass facade, where her reflection hovered faintly calm, contained, unreadable. Inside, she knew. Victoria Hale and Lauren Scott were already filing this away as another inconvenience silenced. Another guest turned away. Another mother and daughter erased from the marble floors. But what they didn't know was who she was. Maya closed her eyes and allowed the past to wash over her. Boardrooms where she was the only woman of color, told she was too ambitious. Investors who asked if she had a male partner to help manage the company. Conference introductions where her accomplishments were reduced to an inspiring story, as though her success was charity, not strategy. Every slight had carved lines into her. Every dismissal had taught her to sharpen her edges. And every humiliation had made her vow one day. She would not only take a seat at the table, she would own the table itself. And she had. Robinson Lux. International Hotels was not an accident. It was not a gift. It was blood, sweat, and countless nights staring at spreadsheets until dawn. It was negotiations in which she had been underestimated again and again until she proved too formidable to ignore. It was the empire she had built, brick by brick, room by room, suite by suite, and now, in one of her own flagship hotels, her mother had been told she didn't belong. Maya's jaw tightened. "This isn't about a room," she said finally, her voice low. "This isn't about marble floors or a view of the skyline. This is about every child who has to learn the same lesson I did, that dignity comes with a price, that our place in the world is conditional, that we must endure slurs just to exist in spaces we've already earned." Clara touched her daughter's cheek gently. "So what will you do?" Maya's lips curved into a small, almost dangerous smile. "I'll remind them who signs their paychecks." Her phone buzzed in her purse. She pulled it out, text arriving from Anthony Reed, her head of legal. "On my way. 15 minutes. Another from Jasmine Cole. Chief of Operations, we've activated Crisis Protocol. ETA 10. Crisis Protocol. Words she had written herself. For moments when a hotel might face reputational fire. Never had she imagined it would be triggered for her own mother. She glanced at Clara, who still looked unconvinced. "You know, Mom," Maya said softly, "sometimes silence is the most strategic answer, but other times, silence is complicity. Today, silence would tell every person in that lobby that what they saw was acceptable, and it isn't." Clara hesitated. She wanted to protect her daughter, even now, but she also recognized the truth in Maya's words. She had seen too many years of quiet acceptance, too many bowed heads. Perhaps it was time for someone to lift theirs. Maya leaned forward, elbows on her knees, hands clasped. She allowed herself a brief moment of vulnerability. Part of me is tired. Tired of always being the one who has to prove herself. Tired of carrying the burden of change. Sometimes I wonder if it would be easier just to walk away. Clara's eyes glistened. Easier, maybe, but not better. Maya met her mother's gaze. Do you ever wish I wasn't like this? That I didn't push so hard Clara's lips trembled into a smile. Maya, I prayed every night you would be exactly like this. Because one day, the world would need you to be. The words sank deep, like anchors finding soil. Maya straightened. Her heartbeat slowed, her mind sharpened. The storm inside her shifted from rage to clarity. She knew what she had to do. She stood, extending her hand to her mother. Come on, they think we left for good. Let's show them how wrong they are. Clara hesitated, then slipped her hand into her daughter's. Her voice was soft, steady. Then I'll walk beside you, like I always have. Together they rose, framed by the towering glass doors of the hotel. Maya glanced at her phone one last time. 10 minutes. The cavalry was coming, and when it did, the lobby of the Grand Crest Manhattan would never forget the lesson. The minutes ticked by like the tightening of a drum. On the stone bench outside the Grand Crest Manhattan Hotel, Maya Robinson sat beside her mother, watching the flow of traffic. Clara adjusted her shawl as a cool breeze slipped through the avenue. Every so often, she glanced at her daughter, sensing the resolve that had hardened in her since the humiliation inside. Maya checked her watch. 10 minutes had passed, then 12, and then, like clockwork, a sleek black SUV turned onto the street, followed by 2 more. The convoy moved with quiet precision, tinted windows gleaming in the sun. New York pedestrians slowed their stride, sensing the presence of something unusual. Taxi drivers craned their necks. A group of tourists paused mid-selfie. The first SUV pulled to the curb. Out stepped Anthony Reed, head of legal, his suit crisp, his tie a deliberate navy blue that spoke of authority without arrogance. He carried a slim briefcase and moved with the calm of a man who had argued in more courtrooms than he could count. His eyes scanned the hotel entrance before landing on Maya. He gave a small nod, the kind that meant, I'm ready. The second SUV door opened, revealing Jasmine Cole, Chief of Operations. Her heels clicked against the sidewalk, purposeful and sharp. A tablet tucked under her arm already glowed with open files, contracts, personnel records, policy manuals. Jasmine had not waited to arrive before preparing. She had been preparing from the moment Maya's call came through. Behind them came 2 members of the corporate security team, broad-shouldered and discreet, their earpieces glinting. They did not posture or menace. They were there for order, not intimidation. Clara watched them with wide eyes. Lord have mercy, she whispered. It looks like the president's about to check in. Maya allowed herself a small smile. Something like that. Inside the lobby. Victoria Hale stood at the front desk, still riding the swell of her earlier triumph. She had convinced herself that the 2 women were long gone, that their absence meant victory. She was drafting a mental report, even now phrases like guest miscommunication and reservation discrepancy dancing in her mind. But the whispers had not died. In fact, they had multiplied. Guests tapped on their phones, trading links to tweets and Instagram posts that had already begun gathering attention. A video clip had surfaced, too blurry but unmistakable, showing Victoria's sharp profile as she uttered the words, "We don't give penthouse suites to people like you." The pianist faltered mid-song, distracted by the growing hum of unease. Then the motorcade came into view through the glass doors. Gas echoed softly around the lobby. Guests leaned forward in their seats, whispering louder now, "Who are they?" one man asked aloud. "I think it's corporate," another replied, eyes wide. When Maya entered, she did not rush. She walked slowly, each step measured, her heels a steady rhythm across the marble. Her mother walked beside her, shoulders square despite her age. Behind them, Anthony, Jasmine, and the security team followed in formation. It was not a show of force. It was a show of inevitability. Every head in the lobby turned, every conversation stilled. Lauren Scott's breath caught in her throat when she recognized Maya. The name she had glimpsed on the reservation file slammed into her memory like a bell. Robinson. Maya Robinson. The CEO. Her hands trembled against the keyboard. Victoria blinked once, then twice, confusion crossing her face before hardening into defiance. She leaned closer to Lauren, whispering, "Who are these people?" Lauren swallowed, her voice barely audible. "That's her. That's Dr. Maya Robinson. She owns this hotel." The words rippled outward like an earthquake. Victoria's face drained of color, but she quickly rearranged her features into a brittle smile. Impossible. If she were the owner, she wouldn't be standing in the lobby like a guest. But doubt had already crept into her voice. At that moment, Jasmine raised her tablet and with a swift gesture tapped the hotel's internal network. The massive LED display behind the front desk flickered. A hotel promo reel that had been looping slow pans of suites, rooftop views. Champagne flutes vanished. In its place appeared a corporate slide deck. On the screen was the Robinson Lux International Hotel's logo, bold and unmistakable. Beneath it, Chief Executive Officer Dr. Maya Robinson. A photograph of Maya herself stared down at the lobby, elegant in a black dress at a shareholders' summit. Gas filled the space. Phones lifted higher, recording. Victoria's brittle smile cracked. This is some mistake. But Anthony Reed stepped forward, his voice calm and resonant, cutting through the room. There is no mistake. Dr. Robinson is not only the CEO of Robinson Lux International Hotels, she is also the majority shareholder of this property. That means every contract, every staff hire, and every paycheck in this building passes under her signature. The silence that followed was immense, vibrating like struck glass. Clara looked around the lobby, watching faces change. Where moments ago there had been indifference, now there was awe, and in some, shame. For once in her life, she was not invisible. Maya remained composed, though inside her heart beat like a drum. This was not about proving her identity. It was about holding others accountable for their actions. She allowed the silence to stretch before she finally spoke, her voice calm but carrying. "Good afternoon," she said, addressing the lobby at large. "My name is Dr. Maya Robinson. I came here today to celebrate my mother's 71st birthday in one of the suites I own. Instead, we were told we did not belong." The words landed like stones dropped into water. Ripples of discomfort spread among the guests, many shifting in their seats. Some bowed their heads. Victoria opened her mouth to protest, but Maya's gaze locked onto her, steady and unflinching. "Victoria Hale," Maya said, her voice level. "Do you deny what you said?" Victoria stammered, her confidence unraveling. "I was only trying to enforce policy." Anthony's voice cut in again, precise as a blade. "Policy does not include racial discrimination, and corporate protocol does not include humiliating the CEO's family." The LED screen behind them shifted again. Jasmine had cued another file of the security camera footage from minutes earlier. There, for everyone to see, was Victoria at the front desk, her lips clearly forming the words, We don't give penthouse suites to people like you." The lobby gasped in unison. Maya did not raise her voice. She didn't need to. Her calm was louder than any shout. "Everyone in this room," she said, "has now seen what happens when dignity is denied. And in the next few minutes, everyone will also see what accountability looks like." Clara felt her throat tighten with emotion. For the first time, she saw her daughter not just as the little girl clutching coins at a diner counter, but as a woman commanding an empire, reclaiming the dignity stolen from both of them. The storm had arrived, and the lobby was its stage. For a long moment, the lobby of the Grand Crest Manhattan felt like the eye of a storm. No one moved, no one spoke. The only sound was the low hum of the air conditioning and the faint shuffle of a suitcase wheel across the marble. Guests who had been lounging with drinks now leaned forward, phones discreetly raised, recording every second. At the center stood Maya Robinson, calm, collected, her mother Clara just behind her, facing them. Victoria Hale tried to stand tall, but her once sharp posture sagged under the weight of 100 watching eyes. Her lipstick smile had disappeared, replaced with the nervous twitch of someone caught in the act. Maya let the silence work for her. It pressed on Victoria, squeezing her excuses before they could form. Finally, Maya spoke, her voice low but resonant. "You didn't just deny us a room," she said. "You denied my mother her dignity. You turned away a woman who has worked her whole life, who taught children in schools that had no heat in winter, who paid taxes that fund this very city. You made a decision based on what you thought we looked like, and you did it without hesitation." The words carried through the space like the toll of a bell. Some guests shifted uncomfortably, others nodded, their faces etched with recognition. Victoria cleared her throat. "Dr. Robinson, I didn't know who you were." I thought Maya lifted a hand gently, and the rest of the words died on Victoria's lips. "That's exactly the problem. You didn't care to know. You assumed. An assumption, when it strips people of dignity, is not ignorance. It is violence." A murmur rippled through the lobby. Someone whispered, "That's true," loud enough for others to hear. Clara stood quietly, her hand resting on the handle of her leather purse. Her eyes glistened, not from sadness, but from the weight of finally being seen. She had lived decades of slights, of quiet dismissals, of being made invisible, and now her daughter was putting words to all of it, here, in the most public of places. Maya stepped closer to the desk. Lauren Scott, the young receptionist, looked down, her fingers trembling against the keyboard. Her shame was visible, her conflict raw. She had gone along with Victoria, too afraid to resist, and now the guilt carved lines into her face. Maya's gaze softened as she looked at her. "Lauren, I know you are following orders, but silence is also a choice. Next time, remember that your voice matters, even when it shakes." Lauren's eyes filled. She gave a tiny nod, barely visible, but enough. A lesson had been planted, not with cruelty, but with truth. Victoria, however, was not ready to yield. "This has been blown out of proportion," she snapped, her voice rising. "We manage hundreds of guests a day. Mistakes happen. I was simply enforcing standard procedure." Anthony Reed, standing at Maya's side, opened his briefcase and pulled out a slim folder. He placed it on the counter, flipping it open. "Standard procedure does not involve racial profiling," he said evenly, "and it does not include public humiliation of a guest, especially when that guest is the CEO of this corporation." On cue, Jasmine Cole tapped her tablet. The LED screen behind the desk changed again. This time it displayed lines from the employee handbook bolded in red. Equal treatment of all guests is mandatory. Discrimination based on race, gender, or appearance will result in immediate termination. Gas rippled again. The policy was undeniable, the evidence irrefutable. Maya turned back to Victoria, her voice even softer now, though every word struck harder. Do you understand why this moment matters? Because it isn't about me. It's about every black mother who has been told she doesn't belong. Every daughter who's had to swallow her pride just to get what she already paid for. It's about the legacy of assumptions that have scarred this country, and you just added to it. The room was so quiet that Clara's breathing could be heard. She lifted her chin, her posture proud, as if to say, "Yes, speak it. Let them all hear." Victoria's voice cracked. I didn't mean this isn't about what you meant," Maya cut in. "It's about what you did." At that precise moment, a new voice rose from the crowd. It was Sarah Lynn, the woman in the green scarf who had been live streaming. She stepped forward, phone still in hand, her voice shaking but determined. "She's right," Sarah said, looking around at the other guests. "I saw it. I didn't speak up, and I regret that. But it happened, and if we pretend it didn't, we're just as guilty." Her live stream audience exploded with comments. Hearts and angry emojis flew across the screen. Hashtags were already forming. Victoria's composure crumbled. She looked around desperately, but every eye was on her now, every phone lens capturing her fall. She had no script for this, no escape. Maya inhaled deeply, then exhaled, grounding herself. "Victoria Hale," she said at last, her tone final. "You are relieved of your duties effective immediately. Security will escort you off the premises. HR will contact you with formal termination papers by the end of the day." The words fell like a gavel. The security officer stepped forward, professional but firm. Victoria's mouth opened, then closed. She looked at Lauren for support, but the young receptionist only lowered her gaze. At last, Victoria turned toward the exit, her heels clicking unevenly against the marble, each step an echo of disgrace. The lobby remained hushed. Maya let her eyes sweep the room. "This is not just about one person," she said, her voice carrying again. "This is about what we allow, what we excuse, and what we ignore. Dignity is not negotiable. Not here. Not anywhere." Clara's chest swelled with pride. She reached out, taking her daughter's hand. For once, it was not to comfort Maya, but to steady herself against the rush of emotion. And as mother and daughter stood there, united, the guests in the lobby found themselves holding their breath. They were not just witnesses to a confrontation. They were witnesses to a reckoning. Phones continued recording. Hashtags spread. And somewhere across the city, the story was already going viral. But inside the grand crest, it was more than a headline. It was history, unfolding in real time, with two women, one seasoned by decades of struggle, the other fueled by unshakable resolve at its heart. The storm had broken, and nothing in that lobby would ever feel the same again. The lobby had never been so still. Even the pianist had abandoned the bench. His hands folded awkwardly, as if music had no place in a moment like this. Phones hovered in the air, little red dots blinking as live streams carried every second across the internet. Maya Robinson stood at the heart of it all, her posture steady, her expression calm. Beside her, Clara Robinson's shoulders were squared, her pride unshaken. They looked like two bookends of history, one forged by decades of endurance, the other by unyielding determination. Maya let the silence linger. Then she spoke again, her voice soft but carrying to every corner. Victoria Hale has been relieved of her duties, but this issue does not end with one person. Today's failure was not only about a single decision. It was about a culture that allowed disrespect to go unchecked, and that ends now. Her words drew a collective intake of breath. Maya turned toward the trembling receptionist. "Lauren Scott," she said gently, "you will meet with HR for retraining. You will not lose your position, but you will learn that silence in the face of injustice is not neutrality. It is consent. And I will not accept silence as protocol in my hotels." Lauren's eyes welled with tears. Relief and shame collided in her chest. She nodded quickly, her voice too shaky to respond. Maya shifted her attention to the broader staff gathered nearby. Housekeepers, bellhops, waiters, concierges all had emerged from their stations, drawn by the gravity of the moment. Some held trays, some clutched clipboards, all frozen as if afraid to breathe. To every employee in this building, Maya continued, understand this, the Robinson Lux brand is not just chandeliers and marble. It is respect. It is humanity. If you cannot uphold those values, you cannot work here. Effective immediately. A 30-day review of staff behavior and training will begin. Those who live our values will be celebrated. Those who do not will be replaced. Murmurs swept through the employees, some fearful, others nodding in agreement. For many, it was the first time the CEO herself had spoken directly to them, not through emails or corporate memos, but in flesh and blood, with her mother at her side. Anthony Reed stepped forward, his folder open, his tone steady. HR representatives are already en route to this property. Each staff member on duty today will provide a statement. Those statements, combined with video evidence, will determine accountability. No detail will be overlooked. The LED screen behind the desk shifted again. Jasmine Cole had pulled up a live policy update draft. The words glowed in bold white letters on a black background. Effective immediately, 1. Zero tolerance for discriminatory conduct. 2. Mandatory equity and dignity training for all staff. 3. Anonymous reporting system monitored directly by corporate compliance. 4. Direct line to CEO's office for unresolved complaints. The guests in the lobby broke into whispers. Some clapped softly, not out of politeness, but out of recognition. They were watching change happen in real time. Clara leaned closer to her daughter, her voice just above a whisper. "You're not just protecting me," she said. "You're protecting every person who will ever walk through those doors." Maya's hand brushed her mother's. "That's the point," she murmured back. Then she straightened, looking once more at the crowd. "Some of you are filming. Keep filming. Let the world see that dignity is defended here. Because when we shine a light on injustice, change is no longer optional. It becomes inevitable." Sarah Lynn, still holding her phone, whispered into her live stream. This is what accountability looks like. Not a press release, not a staged apology, but action, right here, right now. Comments flooded her feed messages of support, stories of viewers who had lived similar moments, pledges to boycott hotels that didn't uphold the same values. Maya paused, taking in the faces around her. Then she made her final pronouncement. By the end of today, formal termination papers will be filed for Victoria Hale. Severance will be limited as per policy violations. Nicole Harris. She glanced briefly toward the assistant manager who had retreated toward the back office. Your employment is also terminated, effective immediately. For failing to uphold guest respect protocols, you will be escorted from the property. Nicole's face drained of color. She tried to stammer a defense, but words collapsed in her throat. The security officers stepped forward, their presence calm but final. The crowd buzzed louder now. Guests exchanged glances, some recording Nicole's silent exit. Others looked at Maya with awe. Few CEOs they had met would risk confronting discrimination so directly, let alone in such a public way. Maya's voice softened for her closing words. Let this be clear. This hotel is not just a place to sleep. It is a symbol of what we stand for. If dignity does not live here, then we have no right to stand among the leaders of hospitality. Today is not about punishment. It is about correction. And correction is the first step toward justice. Applause rose not thunderous, but steady, genuine, a sound that carried weight rather than noise. Clara closed her eyes for a moment, letting it wash over her. She had never imagined that the daughter she once sent to school with hand-me-down textbooks would grow into a woman whose words could move a room like scripture. As the clapping subsided, Maya turned to her team. Anthony, Jasmine, initiate Project Reverence immediately. This is not about optics. This is about rebuilding. Anthony gave a sharp nod. Jasmine tapped furiously at her tablet, sending directives to HR, PR, and compliance departments across the network. Within minutes, emails and notifications began buzzing in staff phones across the country. What started in Manhattan would echo in every Robinson Lux hotel worldwide. The storm had broken, but in its wake, something new was being built. And everyone in that lobby knew they had witnessed the first brick being laid. Outside the Grand Crest Manhattan, the night had thickened, neon signs bleeding across the avenue. Yet inside the lobby, time felt suspended, as though the marble floors and crystal chandeliers had been pulled into a different orbit, one ruled not by wealth or status, but by accountability. Sarah Lynn's live stream was no longer just a phone screen. It had exploded across platforms, shared by activists, journalists, celebrities, even politicians. Within an hour, hashtags like dignity, the Grand Crest, and Stand With Maya trended nationwide. On couches in Atlanta, dorm rooms in Chicago, subways in Los Angeles, and kitchens in Houston. People watched in real time as a black CEO defended her mother's dignity in the very hotel that bore her name. The internet, so often a place of fleeting outrage, found something different here, a story that was both raw and resolute, intimate and universal. Back in the lobby, guests who had witnessed the confrontation in person remained, reluctant to leave. Some huddled in small groups, murmuring about what they'd seen. Others approached Clara Robinson quietly, thanking her, offering words of respect. A few clasped her hands with tears in their eyes. One woman in a navy pantsuit whispered, "Mrs. Robinson, my mother went through the same thing. She passed last year. I wish she could have seen this moment." Clara's eyes glistened, and she squeezed the woman's hand. Across the room, a man in his 50s, salt and pepper hair, worn leather jacket, spoke into a camera crew's microphone. "I've stayed in luxury hotels all over the world, but I've never seen leadership like this. Not in a boardroom, not in politics. Right here, in a lobby, a woman just changed the rules." Anthony Reid was fielding calls by the minute, reporters demanding statements, board members confirming alignment, regulators preparing questions. His responses were measured. Yes, the CEO has taken immediate corrective action. Yes, accountability is underway. Yes, systemic change is being implemented. Jasmine Cole, still working her tablet, intercepted a message from the PR team press already outside. CNN, MSNBC, local affiliates. Do we allow access? She looked at Maya. They're asking for a statement. Tonight. Cameras are ready. Maya stood quietly for a moment, her gaze drifting to her mother. Clara gave her a small nod, silent encouragement. "Let them in," Maya said. Within minutes, the revolving doors opened and a flood of journalists entered, their cameras and boom mics creating a current of energy that shifted the entire space. But unlike most press scrums, this one carried reverence. Reporters lowered their voices, aware they were stepping into a story larger than scandal. Maya walked to the center of the lobby, where the soft glow of chandeliers framed her figure. Clara stood a step behind her, the embodiment of history's weight and resilience. Anthony and Jasmine flanked her, steady pillars of support. She did not raise her voice, but the room hushed the instant she spoke. "Tonight, the Grand Crest Manhattan failed my mother and me. We were denied service, not because of reservation issues or availability, but because of assumptions rooted in prejudice. That is unacceptable, not just here, but anywhere." Flashes popped, shutters clicked, but her tone never faltered. "I want to be clear. This is not about vengeance. This is about correction. Correction for the individuals involved, and correction for the system that allowed their actions to occur without hesitation. That is why, effective immediately. We are launching Project Reverence." Guests rippled. Reporters scribbled furiously. Maya continued, her words deliberate, measured. Project Reverence is a company-wide initiative that will do 4 things. First, mandatory equity and dignity training for every employee, from the front desk to the boardroom. Second, a 24/7 anonymous reporting line, monitored by an independent third party. Third, real-time monitoring of guest interactions through AI auditing systems to ensure accountability beyond human bias. And fourth, a new oversight committee led by external civil rights partners who will review compliance quarterly. Her pause allowed the weight of the reforms to settle. Guests in the lobby exchanged glances, some impressed, some visibly moved. This hotel, and every hotel in the Robinson Lux family, will not be a stage for discrimination. We will be a standard bearer for dignity, because no guest should ever question whether they belong in a place they've already paid to enter. Not my mother, not your mother, not anyone. Applause rose, not just from guests, but from staff as well. Housekeepers clapped, bellhops clapped, even a few concierges joined, their earlier hesitation dissolving into something stronger belief. A reporter called out, "Dr. Robinson, do you worry about backlash, accusations of overreach?" Maya's eyes flickered with quiet fire. Backlash comes with leadership, but when the alternative is silence, backlash is a small price. I would rather face criticism for demanding dignity than comfort for tolerating injustice. Another voice asked, "And Mrs. Robinson, how do you feel about tonight?" Clara stepped forward. Her voice was softer, but it carried like a hymn. "I have lived through humiliation more times than I can count. But tonight, I saw my daughter stand tall not just for me, but for everyone who has ever been told they don't belong. That gives me hope, and hope is stronger than humiliation." The room erupted again in applause. Cameras zoomed in, capturing mother and daughter side by side. The personal fused with the political, the intimate welded to the systemic. Outside, the live stream viewership crossed 3 million. Comment sections flooded with testimonies, stories of airport profiling, denied service, quiet indignities that people carried like scars. The Robinsons' confrontation had become more than a headline. It was a mirror, reflecting experiences long ignored. When the press conference ended, Maya retreated briefly with her team to a quieter lounge. Anthony leaned against the wall, exhausted but resolute. That was extraordinary. But tomorrow, the work begins. Maya nodded. Tonight was for the world. Tomorrow is for the system. Jasmine exhaled, glancing at her buzzing tablet. Social media is on fire. Competitor chains are already making statements, some supportive, some scrambling. Maya smiled faintly. Good. Let them scramble. It means they know change is coming. Clara touched her daughter's hand. I never wanted you to carry my battles. Maya. But I see now. Maybe you were meant to. Maya's throat tightened. For all her composure, her mother's words pierced deeper than any headline. Maybe we were meant to carry them together, she whispered. In the distance, the lobby still buzzed with voices, with cameras, with the electricity of something larger than itself. But in that quiet corner, mother and daughter sat hand in hand, the heart of the storm and the calm after it. And as the city pulsed outside, one truth settled in Maya's chest tonight. They had not just reclaimed their place in a hotel. They had redefined what belonging meant for everyone. The morning after the confrontation, the Grand Crest Manhattan lobby was quieter, but carried the residue of something extraordinary. News vans still lined the avenue. Their satellite dishes pointed to the sky. Guests lingered over coffee, trading whispers about what they had witnessed the night before. Upstairs, in a private boardroom converted into a command center, Maya Robinson stood before a semicircle of faces. Some were projected on a screen directors dialing in from London, or Dubai, and Los Angeles. Others were seated in person, their suits sharp, their expressions sharper. The emergency board meeting had begun. Anthony Reed sat to Maya's right, documents spread neatly before him. Jasmine Cole hovered with her tablet, already charting responses to questions she knew would come. Claire Robinson, though not a board member, sat quietly at the far end of the room, a calm presence that anchored Maya in the storm. Dr. Robinson, began Charles Whitman, an older director with decades of corporate experience. Yesterday's events have gone viral. While I respect your decisiveness, some investors are concerned. They fear we risk alienating clientele who prefer discretion over public drama. A murmur of agreement circled the table. Maya clasped her hands behind her back. Her voice even. What happened yesterday was not drama. It was discrimination. And pretending it didn't happen would not have been discretion. It would have been complicity. Whitman adjusted his glasses. Still, public confrontation may not align with shareholder interests. Our competitors are circling. They see opportunity. Maya leaned forward. Our brand has always sold itself as a symbol of luxury. But true luxury is not chandeliers and thread counts. True luxury is dignity. If we fail at that, the marble under our guests' feet crumbles into dust. The room fell quiet. Then another director, younger, London-based, spoke through the screen. Dr. Robinson, the world is watching. You've already launched Project Reverence. The question is, can we deliver? If we promise reform and fail, the backlash will be worse than the incident itself. Jasmine stepped in. We can deliver. Training modules are already being designed with input from civil rights partners. The anonymous reporting line is live. Our AI auditing program is being piloted in 3 properties starting tonight. This isn't theory, it's execution, Maya added. I will not back down from this. Our credibility depends on it. Shareholders who value profit without principle can take their money elsewhere. But those who stay will find themselves invested in not just a hotel chain, but a movement. Clara's eyes softened as she watched her daughter command the room. For years she had been told not to take up space. Now she watched Maya fill it completely. One by one, directors shifted, their resistance bending under the weight of conviction. Finally, Whitman sighed. Very well. You have our backing. But the world will measure success not by what you say, but by what happens next. Good, Maya replied. That's exactly how it should be. After the call ended, Anthony rubbed his temples. That was close. Some of them were ready to cut funding. Maya exhaled. Let them. Principles tested in comfort aren't principles at all. They're decoration. Downstairs. Meanwhile, staff at the Grand Crest were already in the thick of change. HR had arrived with thick binders and digital tablets, interviewing employees one by one. Some confessed regret. Others admitted relief that finally, someone had drawn a line they had long hoped for. Lauren Scott sat in the staff lounge, trembling as she gave her statement. I knew it was wrong, she whispered, tears streaking her cheeks. But I was scared of Victoria. She punished anyone who questioned her. I froze, and now I see what that silence cost. The HR officer nodded gently. Acknowledgement is the first step. You'll have a chance to make it right through training and mentorship. Word spread among employees the CEO wasn't just firing people, she was building something new. That knowledge steadied some nerves, even as accountability pressed heavily. By afternoon, media headlines dominated every screen. Black CEO turns hotel lobby into stage for justice project. Reverence a blueprint for corporate reform. From humiliation to hope. Mother and daughter sparked national conversation talk. Shows dissected the story. Civil rights leaders praised it. Rival executives scrambled to issue their own statements of solidarity, though most rang hollow. That evening, Maya sat with Clara in her private suite overlooking Central Park. The city glittered below, but her thoughts churned. Do you ever wonder, Maya asked softly, if change is too slow, if no matter what we do, the same things will keep happening? Clara sipped her tea, her gaze steady. Change is never as fast as we want, but every step matters. Last night, you didn't just fire employees. You gave people watching people you'll never meet permission to hope. That is no small thing. Maya closed her eyes briefly, letting the words settle. Later that night, Jasmine entered with fresh data. The live stream reached nearly 5 million viewers. Engagement is through the roof. More importantly, we've had over 12,000 applications submitted through the new anonymous reporting line. People want to tell their stories. Maya's chest tightened. 12,000 stories of indignity, waiting to be heard. Proof that what happened to her and Clara was no anomaly. She nodded slowly. Then we'll listen. Every single one. Clara reached over, squeezing her daughter's hand. That's what makes you different. You're not just building hotels. You're building trust. The city lights flickered across the window, painting their faces in gold and silver. For Maya, the path ahead was daunting lawsuits to prepare for, policies to refine, resistance to weather. But in that moment, with her mother by her side and the city alive with possibility, she felt the weight as something else to purpose. The storm had not ended. It had only shifted. And Maya was ready to walk into it, head held high. 2 weeks after that night, the Grand Crest, Manhattan, no longer felt like the same hotel. The marble still gleamed, the chandeliers still sparkled, but the atmosphere had shifted. Employees greeted guests with genuine warmth, as though dignity had become part of the architecture itself. On the mezzanine level, new posters lined the walls. They bore the words Project Reverence every guest, every time. Beneath the slogan, smaller text read, If you experience or witness discrimination, call this number. We will listen. We will act. Guests paused to read, some snapping photos, others nodding with quiet approval. For many, it was the first time they had seen a luxury hotel publicly center dignity as non-negotiable. Inside a conference room, Maya Robinson sat with Anthony Reed and Jasmine Cole reviewing reports. The anonymous reporting line had surpassed 20,000 submissions. Some were small complaints about tone or service, but many were powerful stories of long-ignored slights. Anthony closed a folder. It's overwhelming, but it's also a gift. They're trusting us. Maya nodded. And we'll honor that trust. Each report is a chance to make someone feel seen. That's the work now, Jasmine added. Staff completion rate for the first wave of dignity training is 92%. Early surveys show measurable improvement in guest satisfaction. But more importantly, employees say they feel safer speaking up. Maya leaned back, exhaling slowly. Numbers mattered, but voices mattered more. For once, the data and the human stories aligned. Later that afternoon, a press conference filled the hotel ballroom. Reporters packed the rows, cameras broadcasting live, civil rights leaders, community advocates, and even a few government officials had gathered. Maya walked on stage with Clara at her side. The applause was steady, not frenzied, more like the recognition reserved for leaders who had turned words into deeds. She began with simplicity. 2 weeks ago, my mother and I were humiliated in this very hotel. Tonight, I stand before you not with bitterness, but with resolve. What happened to us was wrong, but what we've done since proves that wrongs can be turned into lessons, and lessons into change. She outlined the progress of Project Reverence, the reporting line, the training, the oversight committee now chaired by a retired federal judge and a respected activist. She emphasized that this was not branding, it was accountability, visible and measurable. Then she paused, her gaze softening. But let me be clear. This is not just about hotels. This is about boardrooms, schools, airports, restaurants, everywhere. Dignity is treated as optional. My promise is simple. Robinson Lux will not only set the standard for hospitality, we will challenge industries beyond ours to do the same. The applause swelled. Cameras flashed. Clara took her daughter's hand, raising it gently, and the image captured by photographers would become iconic mother and daughter, side by side, symbols of both pain and progress. In the weeks that followed, the ripple effect widened. Rival hotel chains rushed to launch their own initiatives, some genuine, others shallow imitations. Airlines released statements of solidarity. Universities invited Maya to speak about leadership and equity. Congress scheduled hearings on racial profiling in service industries, with Maya called to testify. But beyond institutions, the impact lived in personal stories. Letters arrived at Maya's office, handwritten, typed, emailed. A woman from Mississippi wrote, "My grandmother was turned away from hotels during the civil rights era. Last week, I stayed at a Robinson Lux property and felt respected for the first time. Thank you." A man from Detroit shared I was once told to leave a restaurant because they didn't think I could afford the menu. Watching you stand up with your mother gave me the courage to speak up when it happened again. And they listened. Each story reminded Maya that what had begun as a humiliation in a lobby had transformed into a national conversation about belonging. For Clara, the change was deeply personal. One afternoon, she sat in the hotel garden with a small group of staff who had gathered for a mentorship session. Her voice was gentle as she shared her story, not just the incident, but her decades of quiet endurance. "Young people," she said, "I want you to know this silence may feel safe, but it leaves scars. Speaking up may feel risky, but it heals, and healing is worth the risk." The employees listened intently, some wiping tears, others nodding. Clara had become more than the mother of a CEO. She had become a teacher once again. One evening, After the press frenzy had softened, Maya and Clara returned to the very bench outside the hotel where they had sat on the night of their humiliation. This time, no trembling, no storm, just the hum of the city and the glow of neon lights. Maya asked softly, "Do you feel different sitting here now?" Clara smiled faintly. "Yes, because this bench no longer feels like a place of waiting. It feels like a place of beginning." Maya breathed in deeply, the cool night air filling her lungs. She thought of the journey still ahead, the resistance, the scrutiny, the inevitable missteps. But she also thought of the millions who had watched, who had found in her family's pain a spark of their own courage. She squeezed her mother's hand. "Then let's keep beginning." And in that quiet moment, two women sat side by side, not just survivors of humiliation, but architects of hope. The grand crest towered above them, transformed not by its chandeliers or marble, but by the truth spoken within its walls. A truth that would outlive headlines. A truth that would echo wherever dignity was demanded. And a truth that began, as so many do, with a mother, a daughter, and the refusal to accept less than respect. This story reminds us that dignity is not a luxury, it is a birthright. Many of us who have lived long enough know the quiet pain of being overlooked, dismissed, or treated as less than we are. For some, it happened in workplaces. For others, in schools, hospitals, or even in moments when we simply wanted to enjoy time with family. What Dr. Maya Robinson and her mother Clara teach us is that silence may feel safe, but it does not heal. When injustice happens, choosing to speak with calm strength is not only an act of courage, it is a gift to everyone watching. It shows the next generation that respect must be defended, not begged for. For older viewers, the lesson is clear. The battles we endured are not forgotten, and the dignity we longed for can still be claimed. For younger ones, the message is hopeful. You do not have to carry humiliation quietly. Change is possible, and it begins with refusing to accept less than respect. In our own lives, we may never face cameras or boardrooms, but we can choose daily to defend dignity for ourselves and for those around us. Thank you so much for spending your time with us and walking through this powerful story. Your support means everything. If this touched you, please take a moment to like the video. Share it with friends or family who might need encouragement. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Together, we can keep these stories alive and keep building a world where dignity is never optional.